Hello everyone, how are you guys doing today? How many of you had to pay hundreds of dollars for textbooks in college on top of the thousands that you're already paying for tuition? Paying so much for textbooks on top of everything else you're paying for shouldn't be an issue. There are times that the teacher even requires you to buy the textbook and then you only open it maybe 3 times during the entire semester. Possibly a book that you paid $300 for. This can become very frustrating because not many students can pay out of pocket to attend college. Therefore, they are more than likely borrowing money and having to borrow unnecessary funds for the unused books can be very irritating. Paying for textbooks may be to pay the author or the publisher, but the prices are outrageous for a student who's in school. In the article, Inconvenient Price, College Textbooks, Adrian Felix states, even with tuition and other costs of receiving a higher education being in the rise, students still have to cope with the hardships that are presented by overpriced college textbooks. So many people knock the problem as paying for them is just necessary, or that if the student can't pay for the materials, they shouldn't be in school. Today, I'm here to tell you that the price on college textbooks has become outrageous because some students don't take as many courses at a time to avoid paying for many books. Students try to get through courses without the textbook, and the students usually don't even cover a majority of what the book contains. First, let me tell you about how students choose to take fewer courses at a time in order to avoid paying for so many books at once. Sadly, the high cost in textbooks has led to students taking fewer courses than what the normal course load should be. This essentially hurts them more in the end instead of helping them in the moment. According to Allie Bidwell in the article, High Textbook Prices Have College Students Struggling. Students choose to take a lighter course load to get around the financial burden of textbooks. They may spend a longer time in college, which is also an expensive option. Therefore, the students are essentially creating a later burden on themselves by losing more money in the end. Students should want to get in and out of school as swiftly and quickly as possible so that they can begin their career in life. This becomes drawn out even when they don't take the normal course load, and therefore they drag out their time in college a semester or even more. Having to pay hundreds of dollars for textbooks shouldn't cause this issue. While some may argue that this isn't the end of the world or the student can somehow get around dragging out their courses so long, it still doesn't change that students are hurting themselves because of the high cost. Next, I want to tell you about how students try to get through the course without ever buying a textbook. Many students are now finding it more beneficial to their wallets if they can get through a course without buying a textbook. Sometimes this is okay, mainly if the teacher says not to buy it, but this can also hurt the student academically. Not all courses require the textbook because not all teachers teach straight from the book, but most do utilize it. Sometimes quizzes or certain notes can only be found in the textbook, and if the student opts not to buy it due to cost, they're hurting their grade. In the article, Options Don't Stem Textbook Woes, Allie Grasgreen clearly states that students had still opted against buying a textbook because it was too costly, and 94% of them were concerned that their grade would suffer due to this. This was a conclusion drawn from a survey that she completed that involved 2,000 students from 150 schools. It's apparent that although there are other choices, the students are still having to sacrifice. Some say that students make that choice for themselves, so their grade is on them. But a student can't help if they just simply don't have the funds to afford the textbook. So far, I've told you about how students choose to take fewer courses and they just don't purchase the textbook altogether. Last, I want to talk about how the student usually don't even cover a majority of what the textbook offers. Students pay hundreds of dollars for a textbook that they may cover 50% of what it contains, which means they're essentially paying double what they should already to begin with because they don't even look at the other half. Felix states, colleges should lower the cost of textbooks and ensure that the textbooks required are only comprehensive of the content of the course. This would be very beneficial to students because prices would drop dramatically for many textbooks, which would lead to students actually buying them. It's not only frustrating to pay so much for a textbook, but it's that much more frustrating when you don't even use half of the material. It makes you depend on the decision of whether it really is necessary because there's no need in paying for so much material that you don't need. Some can argue that textbooks are not designed for each separate course at each school. Therefore, it can be very difficult to make the textbook accordingly. While this may be true, the school itself can do something about the issue. Today, I have talked about the reasons that the price on textbooks is so high. Students tend to take fewer courses to avoid buying so many books at once. They opt to not buy the textbooks at all, and they hope for the best, and then they also pay so much for a book that they use maybe half of what it offers. These reasons, along with others, make it apparent that the cost of the textbooks should be lowered. If students aren't succeeding in school because they can't afford textbooks, then what's the point of it all? Do you remember when I asked if you pay hundreds of dollars for textbooks? I'm sure many of you were thinking yes, and some were probably saying no because you opted not to due to cost. After paying thousands of dollars to attend college to begin with, paying so much for books is ridiculous. In the article, the majority of students have skipped buying college textbooks because they're too expensive. Tyler Kincaid states, the higher cost of textbooks is just one of the many ways that higher education can exact a heavy financial toll on students. Unfortunately, this is the biggest issue at hand, and it needs to be resolved. For those of you who are hurting because of not having books, search for help to get them. And to those who spend hundreds of dollars on them, search for cheaper options. The issue is not fixed yet, but hopefully cheaper textbooks are in the future.